So, unless you live under a pretty spectacularly sized rock, you've probably seen all of the shortages that are happening recently. So, I decided to build a PC that would hopefully present an option.
First up is the motherboard and CPU. Now this is a bit of a weird one. A Phenom 2 X4965 system that I ended up picking up for just $25. The performance is pretty decent, however there are some games that it can't play due to it missing the instruction sets required. The RAM is a set of 8GB 1600MHz HyperX memory. I would have liked dual channel for this build, however this is all I had on hand. This was a pretty good deal that I got for just $25. The graphics card, the most interesting part of this build, is an R9 It's a little old, but it can still play a lot of games at the decent res and FPS.
The case and power supply are... Okay, look, don't judge, alright? There's a lockdown here right now which meant as much as I would have loved to get this RGB case for $30, I couldn't. The same thing for the power supply, I only had this sketchy time bomb. If you're looking to build a PC, make sure you get a good power supply. Oh, almost forgot about this one. The storage is a Kingston 120GB SSD that I got for just $15. It seemed like a pretty good deal until I realized it was the A400, which is pretty notorious for failing. So, at least it was just $15, so it's not that much of a loss if anything does happen. Enough of that though, let's get into actually building the PC. Now that the PC is built, let's jump into some benchmarks. First up, we have superposition. In this one, the R9 270 ended up scoring 4062 points, which is about average for this card. The temps were also pretty good, with them only peaking at around 60 degrees. Noise was also decent, and the missing fan blade doesn't seem to have affected things too much. Next up, I tested Shadow of the Tomb Raider, a game that's still pretty demanding today. Running at the lowest settings, we had a minimum of 6 FPS and a max of 94, with an average of 46. It was playable in most areas, however there were a few stutters in the forest scene. Overall, it ran it pretty well. Running Firestrike, Skyrider and Cloudgate reveals that the Phenom 2 is doing pretty well, however sometimes the scores are even behind the Core 2 quads. This is pretty bad considering that it takes a lot more power than said Core 2, and the i7 completely destroys it here. Which leads me nicely into alternatives for the Phenom 2 X4965. Now if you're looking for a CPU around that price range, look for an i5 750. It performs a little better, runs a lot cooler, and has some instruction sets that are required by games. However, it is a little bit more expensive, and in this case it's about double the price of the Phenom 2. And that's not including the motherboard. As for alternatives to graphics card, look out for the GTX 760. It performs slightly better, however does take a bit more power and is losing driver support. But then again, the R9 270 has already lost driver support by AMD. Now, that's about it for the video. Due to time restraints, I couldn't record as much content as I wanted, and I originally wanted to benchmark a couple more games. However, that was not possible for this video. So I'll be making a part 2 where I upgrade the case, the power supply, and some other stuff, and I benchmark more games. So stay tuned for that.